Now, the State of the Union address is President Obama's chance to sell you on his agenda for the rest of the second term. So what will he reveal on Tuesday, and how does he plan to get out of his slump? The roundtable is ready to break it down shortly, but we want to start with our new poll out this morning, which has some alarming numbers for the president. We took it straight to a top Obama advisor who shapes the White House message every day, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney.
Thank you very much.
The State of the Union is perhaps President Obama's biggest and best chance to get the mojo back.
There is much progress to report.
A make-or-break moment for a White House struggling. Just look at this stunner from the latest ABC News Washington Post poll. Only 37% of the public think the president has the ability to make the right decisions for the country.
How can the president lead when barely a third trusts his ability to make the right decisions?
John, I think what we saw last year in 2013 was a Washington that did not deliver for the American people. And the president sees this as a year of action, to work with Congress where he can and to bypass Congress where necessary to lift folks who want to come up into the middle class.
So if you look at last year's State of the Union address, the president made some specific promises. Raise the minimum wage.
Raise the federal minimum wage to $9 an hour.
Immigration reform.
The time has come to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Background checks for gun purchases.
Background checks that will make it harder for criminals to get their hands on a gun.
None of that happened. Isn't this year only going to be harder?
Those were calls for action that involved Congress. The president's very disappointed that the Senate failed to heed the will of the vast majority of the American people when it came to expanding background checks. On immigration reform, we're actually optimistic that 2014 will be the year that Congress delivers to the president's desk a bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform bill that meets the principles he laid out and that he can sign into law.
But it's what the president has already signed into law.
We are done.
His signature achievement, health care reform, that's shaping up to be the biggest headache for Democrats in 2014. Our poll shows 59% disapprove of how Obamacare has been implemented. And conservative groups are blasting Democratic candidates over Obamacare.
Obamacare doesn't work.
Will it have been worth it if you lose the Senate? I mean, you already lost the House because of the health care law.
I'll tell you what.
Will it have been worth it politically?
Expanding access to quality and affordable health insurance to millions of Americans, reducing the growth in health care costs, which is happening.
Would it have been worth it if you lose the Senate? That's a simple.
This is not about politics. So the answer is, it is absolutely worth it, no matter what happens.
Even if you lose the Senate.
Because and I tell you, and I just disagree that Republicans are going to have a winning issue on this if they decide to run on it, because they got to explain what repeal means.
In the State of the Union Tuesday, a key focus for the president, income inequality. But many Republicans say the president is to blame for rising poverty. Senator Tim Scott told my colleague Jeff Zeleny.
7 million more Americans are living in poverty today that were not in poverty when Bush was leaving office.
I assume Senator Scott didn't note is that a lot of people were thrown into poverty by the worst recession since the Great Depression, which was in full bloom when President Obama was sworn into office.
But the president's had 5 years, Jay. I mean, 5 years. The economic crisis is in the rearview mirror. The Bush years are in the rearview mirror. Doesn't the president bear some responsibility? He has policies for the fact that the poverty rate in America has gone up. The gap between rich and poor is only greater.
What I can tell you, John, is that the problem and the challenge the president has identified has been one in the making for over 30 years.
Then there's the criticism leveled by the executive editor of the New York Times, who called the Obama White House the most secretive White House I have ever been involved in covering.
You covered White Houses as a reporter for Time magazine. So would Jay Carney, reporter, correspondent, bureau chief for Time magazine, be satisfied with the level of openness and transparency with this White House?
Well, Jay Carney, reporter, would never be satisfied with the amount of information that any White House or any congressional
So Jay Carney would fight with Jay Carney?
Well, what I would tell you is that you and all of your colleagues, my former colleagues in the press, absolutely have to be beating on us and others around Washington to get as much information as you can. I strongly disagree with that statement. I know from experience that it's wrong. And we provide an extraordinary amount of information and access to reporters, and we work every day to provide more.